Hello and welcome again to PR Presents. Hope you've all been looking after yourselves. Now, for those who can remember 1991 and sport that year in the UK, you may well recall Gazza as the man of the moment. Gold for McColgan and the men's relay team at the World Championships in athletics, and England oh so nearly lifting the Rugby World Cup. Well, for me that year, I was glued to Wimbledon for the first time, with several underdogs and future tennis stars gaining the headlines that fortnight. Bitten by the bug as a teenager at the time, I decided to go and take up some tennis lessons myself. And I'm pleased to be joined today by my actual tennis coach from those Saturday mornings back in the early 90s. Mark Tennant, great to see you.
Good to see you again, Patrick. It's been a long time.
Well, Mark, I mentioned then about what drew me onto the tennis courts for the first time. Where did your passion for the sport begin?
I always played a lot of sport when I was a kid. I grew up in North London, but the thing that just used up every minute of my time when I was young was football. I mean, I played for the school teams. I played in the park. I played where I could. I played in the garden, everywhere I could.
Oh, right.
And I didn't really start playing tennis until I was about 11 years old, actually. You know, I've come from a family that's always believed in sport without like them encouraging me massively. I mean, they always provided opportunities, but it's not like Dad was always taking me and coaching me or anything like that, like you hear with some people. So it came from just me being a fidgety teenager, really, and a fidgety kid who was just always on the go and never at home and was always kicking or throwing or catching something, I suppose. And it came from there, and then gradually got into tennis.
Fantastic. Well then, coming from North London, you travelled down, I believe, to Portsmouth Polytechnic as it was at the time in the late 80s.
It was, yeah.
Yes, and then not long afterwards, I believe you established your tennis coaching in the city. How difficult was it to establish yourself in that era, long before the days of the internet?
I'd actually done quite a lot of tennis coaching, helping out at summer and Easter camps at my local club down the road in North London. So I was already quite into tennis and tennis coaching by then, and I did my first coaching badge when I was 17. So when I went to Portsmouth Polytechnic, I was already doing little bits of coaching in my local area, already had qualified. It was my first level qualification. And then I played at the indoor tennis centre, the Navy Indoor Tennis Centre in Portsmouth, and got involved in a bit of coaching there. And it sort of grew from there, really.
Well, moving on then from your coaching days on the Milton Park tennis courts, what was next for you in the sport?
Well, then I got myself involved with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Tennis Association and the Coaches Association, and they were quite active. I remember I went to a coaches meeting in Southampton, where I met a lady called Dawn Newbury, who at the time was the County Development Officer for the LTA for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. I got myself involved then in county sort of programs, juniors and adults and stuff like that. And then in 1992, I think it was, I applied for a job as the head coach at the Avenue Lawn Tennis and Squash Club in Havant, and I got that job. Right. And that was quite a big jump, because I went from doing that bit of county work here and there, and then working in the park, to running a program at a 10-court club, big clubhouse, very traditional, strong membership. And it took me a while to adapt, because it was quite a big jump, but I made it work.
So you became the head coach then at the Avenue, and what did you lead on to from there?
I saw an advert for a tennis development officer in Somerset. It was one of the range of what were called ITI tennis centres, the Indoor Tennis Initiative run by the LTA, where it was community tennis indoor tennis centres. So that was a brand new tennis centre. So I became tennis development officer there. And so I did that from 94 to 98 and had a wonderful time down in Somerset. And then during that time, I met some other powers that be at the LTA who were down in Taunton actually for a regional meeting. I then got into coach education for the first time and tutoring some courses through a chance conversation with a lady called Anne Pankhurst, who's still around and doing a lot of stuff in the UK and in the US as well. And so I started tutoring and working as an LTA tutor. So I stayed in Taunton then until 98, and then moved up to Maidenhead in Berkshire, and was actually working at Queen's Club then, and working for the LTA with Anne Pankhurst and running coach education courses around the southeast area.
Oh, excellent. So then going into the millennium, you obviously would have carried on there, I believe, for a few years. Is that right?
Yeah, until from 99 to 2004, I was at the LTA, yes. In 2004, another chance conversation with a gentleman called Dave Miley, who a lot of people in tennis will know, who was the executive director of the development department at the ITF, the International Tennis Federation. And he said to me, look, if ever you're free to do any work for us, I've heard about you and, know you're doing some good things. And if ever you're interested in doing a bit of stuff for us, let me know. And so that was another one of those chance conversations. And again, the theme is, making these chance conversations count. And a few months later, I gave him a call and said, Dave, do you remember that chat we had? And he said, yeah, come on, let's meet for a coffee. So I did. And he offered me my first sort of international assignment to go and do a workshop in Qatar in the Middle East. Oh, wow. And then from there, I started working with the International Tennis Federation at Bank Lane in London. And so I was there from 2005 until 2007, involved in a global project called the Tennis Play and Stay campaign, which I worked with Dave on to look at the way in which beginner tennis is introduced. And then I had that chance conversation in 2007 on a British motorway with my friend and colleague Richard Marklow, who also a lot of tennis people will know. And we were actually going up to Leeds for some tutor training for the LTA. And we were both at a time where we were, for different reasons, starting to look at the next stage in our careers. And we decided that actually we'd like to work together. And that's when we decided to form a company called Inspire2coach, that we are both owners of and still directors of to this day, 13 years onwards.
So with Inspire2coach, you're based over at the University of Warwick and have gone on to become one of the largest tennis operators in the UK. What coaching services do you feel has been the secret to your success?
We always made sure that we had a business that was flexible and could move with the times and be quite responsive to different situations. And actually, here we are talking about, tennis in the middle of a pandemic, and that's another good example of where we've had to be agile and responsive as a business. So we decided that to just become a training provider for coaches was quite risky because it was so dependent on whichever direction the LTA might take. So we decided that alongside that, we should run some tennis clubs, which might give us a bit of security if ever the coach education business went belly up, really. And so we took on a couple of clubs in the Midlands, and we've now got, I lose count, but round about 35 clubs, 35 facilities, I should say. They're not all tennis clubs, some of them are parks as well. 35 facilities around the UK that we run. And alongside that, we have the coach education business, which is what we do in the UK, but also internationally as well.
Have I2C Tennis developed many relationships and good connections then with different tennis federations and academies across the globe?
So I've been very fortunate to visit, I haven't counted them exactly, but around about 100 countries to do various things with tennis and training coaches. So I've made good connections, and we still have quite a few contracts in different countries. That's an area that I really love. I mean, it is such a privilege to be able to represent my company or our company and my country as well.
That's fantastic. Well, Mark, it's been a real pleasure to catch up with you after all this time. And as a former student as well, it's wonderful to see how you've driven this on, your passion and know-how for the sport, and into the very successful tennis centre that yourselves and your colleagues have over in Coventry. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you very much for joining us, and stay safe and tune in again soon to PR Presents.